to host this next session is our wonderful Scottish AI Alliance Chair, Catriona Campbell, MBE, and she is the CTIO of EY, UK and Ireland, but she is, of course, also our wonderful chair. So she's going to have a lovely chat with our, I'll move out of the way, with our keynotes, and also please think of more questions, and Catriona will throw them to you, but I'm sure she'll have questions of her own to kick off. Over to you, Catriona.
Thank you very much indeed, Steph. So I think what you've heard is, it's not what you would usually hear at an AI conference. A lot of the AI conferences I attend are usually business-led conversations. One of the reasons to open this with such important speakers is that really important conversation that we're having in the room here today. And I want to kick off by just kind of working on a little statement. I think you have parallel objectives to create a safe, trustworthy, inclusive, and ethical AI. And one of the things, Rachel, you spoke about in your kind of design principles at the end there, you talked about values, vision, complexity, workflow, and consequences. And just going back to the first one, values. I think that very, very nicely sits alongside your discussion. It is about values. And if I may take a step back to the early days of the internet, kind of mid-90s, a man called Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who then was just Tim, working out of an Oxford lab. Well, he designed the World Wide Web. And when he designed the World Wide Web, he realized that he'd helped humanity connect. He'd helped us surface data. But he also realized that he had actually designed a system that wasn't terribly inclusive. It wasn't inclusive because people with impairments couldn't use the text-based technology. So he set up a thing called the W3C Consortium. And that was an organization which educated developers, those deploying the technology, and indeed users, about how to build systems that were accessible. And I want to draw a parallel here because I think and I'd love your view on this, I think what's really important is education. It's creating positive narratives and educating those users of systems, those deployers of systems, and those developers of systems to maintain those values. So just give me your view.
So I think what's more important is money and who gets it. So to the point of who gets to tell the story, who is believed, who is invested in, who is put on the forms. I think, the things that you were saying about alternative futures, they exist. They're all around us, but they're not the ones that are invested in. And I think it's not only about changing the behavior of the incumbent people and giving them skills. It's about lifting up everybody else and investing in other kinds of things. And so, I go to lots of things where people say, well, the issue is what people need now is they need media literacy, they need data literacy, they need digital literacy, they need statistical literacy. Actually, if we were in a world where rather than we were all forced to navigate hostility, more people got to set the agenda and resources were more equitably distributed, I think we'd get a lot more of the kinds of outcomes that you were talking about.
Yeah, I do really agree that in the end, for example, the EU says that with education will help us to understand better the use of AI, and education should be like on the forefront of any development. But I think that education is not enough. Education is something that it should be easy in the end to have this, to have access to these developments and to be really part of it. But we need, for example, values, and those values education will not bring to you. Mm-hmm. Values can be part of you, for example, if you live them, mm-hmm. if you have connections with other people, right? And because I don't know, but in many conferences, for example, we have super highly educated people. And despite that, we still don't know how to make sure that those technologies are for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So,
So is the argument then to incentivize organizations building and deploying these technologies to marry profit with purpose? Is that what it's about? And if so, how do we do that?
I mean, I suppose I've spent, in a way, quite a lot of time thinking about that, but I think equally, profit is not the only outcome. And that, so in the years I've been working in technology policy, what I have seen is that people get, and I don't want to be the person who's just talking about money, but really it's all about money. What happens is government policy gets a little bit distracted by the fact that somebody over there has made a lot of money and they want to make more of it. So there was an extraordinary campaign that the UK government in Westminster ran last year, where they made like an animation of a horse turning into a unicorn, turning into a dancing decacorn. It's really embarrassing to celebrate that the UK had reached having 10 decacorns. And a decacorn is a company, help me out.
10 billion.
The 10 billion, right? Over here, and then over here, they were saying that they were going to put people who run technology companies in prison if they couldn't work out how to deliver the online safety bill. That's not a strategy, right? And so what tends to happen is we get lots of money pushed into certain things because nobody kind of knows how the economy works, whereas really we could be like lifting everybody up in a more sort of just and equitable way. And I think it's not just about a profit being directed to purpose, it's about technology being directed to purpose, which isn't always about a tiny number of people having more, it's about all of us having more, I think.
Some of the capital that's going into AI startups, not unicorns and decacorns, but the startup side of things, is doing some really good healthcare provisioning. And Chiron Medical was mentioned by the minister, which I think is phenomenal. So out with all of the billionaires, there is capital flow going into really exciting startups. Is that what you want to see more of?
I mean, a lot of that. So I was reading something yesterday about how AI startups with all male founder teams get 6 times more money than ones founded by women, right? And I think while money is moving, every AI event I go to, and I think this is like a wonderful exception, is like 90% men, right? And so while money is moving into things that could be beneficial, it's moving into incumbent power holders, it's not moving diversely, and I think that is a thing I would like to see.
So we'll take some questions from the floor now, if you have any. We've talked very broadly, and there's a gentleman on the left-hand side. If there's a microphone, thank you. So we're sorry to make you run over here, please. And then there's,
and then go the other way.
Thank you very much. And then we'll go over there to the right-hand side after you've done. Thank you. Please state who you are, where you're from, as in not the country.
Hello. My name's Matt. I'm from down the road, Glasgow, the better city. Sorry.
Here.
Yes, thank you very much. So yeah, I want to echo. It's really good to see a panel that's not all just white tech bros. It's really exciting. But on that note, I think we've got these words behind us, which is fantastic to have that as the theme: trustworthy, ethical, and inclusive. But for me, the elephant in the room. Is it possible to build an AI culture in a late-stage capitalist patriarchy? Is it possible to coexist in a system that is driven by profit, and profit which profits from division, racism, sexism, all the horrible things that we're trying to break down? How can we profit in a world with a tool, with AI, working with communities which are naturally skeptical because technology for generations has been the absolute enemy of the working class, of minorities, of women, of children. How is this different? I hope it is. I'm an optimist, but I would love to hear your guys' opinion.
Well, from my point of view, I'm really pessimist because if we think that the structures that we have right now are the ones who are going to save us, we are not getting it right. There are structures of inequality that have been there for generations, and we are still living here, and we are surviving, but in which way we are surviving? Like, how do we make sure in the end that we can remove those structures? I mean, I think that thinking that we are here or we are living because of profit, we are not living here we are not alive for profit. We are alive for connections, right? To make sure that people value us. And now we are seeing value in a way that profit is equal value. If you have money, you are more valuable, right? And it shouldn't be like this, but we are all agreeing in this space that it should be.
So, Oyidiya, to answer Matt's question, you said you're an optimist. You mentioned the EU AI Act earlier. Do you think that within the EU, with that, that will help better development, regulate products designed with AI to have better values?
In this case, the EU AI Act, in the end, the ones who will just make sure that the systems are going to be inside of the different risk scale level that the EU has been framing, in the end, it's the developers of those systems. So in the end, we are trusting those people who are creating those systems to make sure that they are complying, they are following the rules, right? And at the same time, we have, there will be certifications about how those systems are being inside, how they are following the rules, right? But if we see that the organizations who are more working on the development of those certificates are just providing, like their own, how do you say it, their own sense or their own version of how the EU AI Act should be. And in the end, the private company is going to pay X amount of money to make sure that those certificates are there. This is not the way it should be.
So just to give the audience an idea of the EU AI Act, in case they're not familiar with it, there are extraterritorial implications for anyone in the UK who has even a single customer in the EU. They have to also conform. The tests you're referring to, the assessments, are the conformance tests. And if you fail a conformance test, then the board of the company is fined up to 7% of global revenue, or 35 million euros, whichever is the higher. So ostensibly, the purpose, as outlined, to conform, is a good one. It's hitting them hard in the pockets of the boards who deploy said technology, but you're saying it doesn't really go far enough because the technology developers are indicating what ought to be tested. Right, okay, got you. Rachel?
Yeah, so I suppose what your question made me think of, there's a great Zapatista slogan, which is to build a world where many worlds are possible. And I think we do have that capability. We have many different realities happening all at once, you know. And if it is the case that one kind of technology could displace millions of jobs, completely change healthcare, do all sorts of other extraordinary things, why aren't other extraordinary radical outcomes possible too, right? And I think, you know, the reason I really love the points about narrative is that we don't all have to live in that story. We can live in our own story, and we can make that real. So I think to the point I made earlier about it's okay to say no, right? We don't have to say yes. And I've spent like 10 years trying to work out what are the good ways to rebel against these things? What are the good ways to rebel against things you can't see that kind of move slowly? And I think the most important thing is making other things and making other ways of doing things, not just reacting. And I think that you were saying that too, that we can make it happen.
There you go, Matt. Positive narratives, saying no, and hopefully good outcomes. We'll pop over to this side of the room. There was a question, if that's okay. Thank you very much indeed. Raise your hand. Thank you kindly. And don't forget to say who you are. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks. My name's Anthony, and I work in Edinburgh as a software engineer on a research AI team at Amazon. So I've been heartened to hear an understanding today that these technologies bring unusual risks and strong support for all of Team Human, and this willingness to say no and to thoughtfully select AI uses based on their likely outcomes rather than assume their general inevitability. But yeah, I want to note the second, maybe mammoth elephant in the room. Despite necessary uncertainty, and knowing that historically humans who predict doom turn out to be wrong, many smart and serious people judge that on current paths, these technologies carry significant risk that we could even destroy all human value and kill everybody through either deliberate weaponization or by losing control of sufficiently capable systems. And I just wanted to get it out there and say, I hope it could be part of the conversation today. Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. I guess that's the possible future. You both referred to narratives and possible futures. Would you like to give us your view?
Well, it's true that AI kills people, but who are the people who are being killed by AI? I mean, we could think about the people who are extracting all the minerals that we need in order to make sure that the energy gets into those AI systems. Mm-hmm. Those people are being killed. But I guess that when people say AI will, in the end, or in the future, or near future, will kill people, we are not thinking about those people. So in the end, when we try to infer that power to robots or to AI systems, without thinking that who are the people who are putting that fear there. There's people who have fear every day for things that are even more little than AI. And I mean, and by thinking that your biggest fear in this world is that a robot or a PC is going to kill you, it's being naive. It's just being out of this world. It is not thinking about other people who have dangers every day, even when they open their door. And I think that we should also try to acknowledge that, right? I mean, I think that both things can, at a certain point, can try to coexist, but there's a priority in our lives, right? Rachel?
Yeah, and so one of the things I find really interesting about this is the idea that someone would say, I think I'm making something that could kill everybody, so I'm going to carry on. Like, what? And that actually the idea that certain people do not get to adhere to the social contract, do not get to be like a part of the general, the striving of trying to have a good life. I don't think we should celebrate and support those people, and that even if that is going to be the thing that happens, why are they doing it, right? And I think that if you are not creating a thing that you are not 100% certain is going to turn into beneficial outcomes, and you don't stop, then more fool you,
Thank you very much indeed. We're going to go to Slido for those virtual attendees. And I guess, Rachel, I'll start with you. So this one question, and it's from someone anonymous. Can we also rebel by exposing injustices?
Yes.
I.e. using our experience to open up the algorithmic black boxes of AI decision-making systems?
Yeah, and I really think what this comes down to is, again, who gets the money to do things and where those skills are distributed. So if the skills to interrogate those systems were kind of prevalent across civil society, and that we could be creating those data points, telling those their stories, then actually, like, we wouldn't have to be here trying to make a case. The evidence would be there. I think there is an extent to which I don't want to spend my whole time trying to make systems that are created to be extractive better. I think, what we want to be doing is putting our time into making better outcomes and liberating people from the things that are happening. But I think anything that tells the story better, more clearly, is really important.
Brilliant. I'm going to continue with the Slido questions, and this one's from Dave Jennings from the Smart Data Foundry. Thank you very much indeed, Dave, for your question. And Oyidiya, I'll come to you for this one. Gartner says synthetic data, and by the way, this is a bit of a nerdy question, you ready? Gartner says synthetic data will be dominant in the next 2 years, overcoming challenges like biased data, related, and also those related to privacy, accessibility, and security that often impede innovation. How do you feel about that?
Well, for me, synthetic data is just, it's something that it's so far from me, but I know that it exists, and that we are living in a state where we are also making sure that in the end we can recreate data that we don't have at the moment, right? And yes, it can help us, but we always we have to make sure that everybody's there to make sure that that synthetic data is not reproducing what we already have, or is reproducing things that we don't know yet, that it's going to still provoke inequality, right?
So I build systems in my company. We've got 20,000 staff, and I'm building custom GPTs based on RAG. So we're in control of the data. We have a human in the loop, so we have a human checking the data, and then another human critiques that, and then the RAG is based into the system. The system is then tested thoroughly before then it's deployed in a pilot environment. It's a pretty lengthy, expensive process, but we make sure that the data that we're using is as far as we can manage, effective for its use. So I guess that's one way of doing it.
I think one of the things that I would say is there are definitely, I think, privacy and research cases where synthetic data is really important. But again, if you stop and think about it for a moment, there is so much of real life that is missed out of the data that we have. And rather than trying to solve that issue, we're making things up. I think it kind of shows you how sometimes incentives are not quite aligned with what the better outcomes are. And so I think there are totally ways in which synthetic data can solve specific kinds of problems. But what I would like us to do is get real, really real, and address those issues first.
So we've got time for 2 more questions from the audience. I think there was one at the back there was actually, yes. Was first, and then we'll come over here. Can we have the lady at the back for after that one? Is that okay?
Thank you very much. My name is Kudus. I'm a data scientist from Glasgow. Yeah, I've got 2 questions for the panel. So number one is the aspect of ethical and fair AI.
We can't hear you.
Put the mic closer.
Okay, I'm Kudus, data scientist from Glasgow. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I got 2 questions here. Number one is ethical and fair AI. Considering the pervasive issue of bias in AI algorithms, which can lead to unfair or discriminatory outcomes, what strategies should companies or developers employ to ensure their AI systems are ethically and fair for all users? That's number one question. So number two question is the aspect of
Do you want to
AI.
pause there for that one, and then we'll come
Okay.
back to your second one. Thank you very much indeed. Right, so what systems should organizations deploy to ensure that the data that is used and deployed in the systems are ethical and unbiased?
It's very difficult to answer the question because we all have biases. And it's very difficult to remove all the problems there. So that's why it's important that we have people just having an overview of what is happening.
Is it a talent issue? Because for us, we ensure that the teams in the development are diverse. That's one way we feel that, that we can help the system. Go on.
But I would also ask how diverse they are. Are they diverse in knowledge, for example? Are they diverse in lived experiences? Are they diverse in beliefs? Because in the end, if we make sure that we have completely different points of view working on the same team, one, we will enrich the team. We will make sure that everybody learns about the others, and maybe we could try to make sure that those systems are there. But we nowadays see that there are systems that are being already deployed in our society, and nobody's saying to the people who are passing in front of a camera, hey, you're being watched. So sometimes it's also how do we make sure that people who are already being a target of those systems are also having the knowledge about it, and how they can contest that.
The awareness.
Because in many cases there's not even a way in which those people can have an easy access, because sometimes they say, yeah, there's access, but how do they make sure that they can have access?
Brilliant.
I mean, I would add, I don't think there's such a thing as unbiased data, because what data offers is a perspective. And so, what you need are systems that ensure that you are not doubling down on the worst outcomes. And I try to, the thing that we think about is how to break systems into components so that you don't get reinforcement across the whole of the system.
Back to your measurement point and one of your principles, right? So second question, super quick, if that's okay, and then we'll go to the lady.
Second question is about AI societal impact. Given AI potential for both positive and negative impact, on society, including the risk of malicious use, how should we balance, innovation with the needs for regulation and ethical consideration, to ensure AI benefits society as a whole?
Say that bit again. How do you balance innovation with?
How should we balance innovation with the need for regulation and ethical consideration?
Great. Good question. Would you like to answer that one, Rachel?
I think in a way I kind of addressed that earlier. It's thinking about who, what the incentives are, what the outcomes are, who we're innovating for. And I think, I know there is a delight in innovating for the sake of innovating and for play and discovery. But actually, as well, we can, we don't have to just lean into making things because we can do things purposefully too.
Love it. So, one more question. It's the lady over there, and it's super quick questioning and one-line answers. Are we ready? Okay. Please do stand if you're able and tell us who you are and ask your question.
Hi, I'm Antara. I'm a student at the Futures Institute here at the Edinburgh University. So I came across an interesting thought recently, which was the goal of healthcare is health. The goal in the legal system is justice. So when we're developing AI and we're working in this space, because you've briefly talked about values, can you identify one value that we should work towards?
Good question. Very good. Thank you. Right, one-line answers, ladies?
I can go where you're thinking about it. I would say I've got two. One would be joy, and the other would be liberation.
Brilliant. Very nice.
Yeah, I also agree with joy and liberation. But I would say freedom and knowledge.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. Now, just to wrap up, I want to leave us with a quote by Colbert, the French philosopher. He said, "With great power comes great responsibility." Uncle Ben, Spider-Man's uncle, also said that. That is what we have, great responsibility. So those of you who are working in this field, ensure that you've learned some lessons here from these amazing keynote speakers. And put your hands together. Thank you very much indeed.